Film, television, commercials, new media. You are listening to Producer's Pal, unmasking the business of filmmaking and sharing killer advice from seasoned pros. And now your host, Joshua Brown.
Welcome to Producer's Pal, episode number 21. I'm Joshua Brown. Today on the podcast, independent filmmaker and screenwriter Kevin Dinovis. This episode is proudly sponsored by Indie Film Finance Guide. If you want to learn the secrets to funding your own film the independent way, learn more at producerspal.com/finance guide. All right, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Kevin Dinovis. How are you doing today, Kevin?
I'm doing very well. Thanks, Josh, for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were recommended to me by Dan Mervish, who we both know. I believe your film actually, did it premiere at Slamdance? Is that correct?
Yeah, it did back in 1998. I think the festival at that time was in its fourth year.
Nice. Wow, yeah. That's pretty cool. So you've known Dan for quite a while then, yeah?
Yeah, and I knew him by reputation before that even.
Oh, okay.
When I was in post-production on Surrender Dorothy, which took about 2 years, we had kind of an angel benefactor named Ray Murray come into the scene, and he was known in Philadelphia for having a video store called TLA, and now the distribution company. I mean, really, really good video store, and just the perfect cineast. He kind of came in as our angel, and he gave me this press packet and said, "This is what you need to do to market your film." And he slammed this telephone book-sized, tome in front of me, and I looked at it, and it was for a movie called Omaha the Movie, which I'd never heard of, by a filmmaker named Dan, whom I'd never heard of. But I'll tell you, by the end of that day, I knew him well. When I came out here to California with the movie in '97, submitted it to Slamdance, and I went to the office to hand the tape personally to the guy, and I recognized Dan from his press kit. And I said to him, "You're Dan Mervish." And he looks at me, and he's like, "Yeah." And I go, "You did Omaha the Movie." And he's like, "Yeah." And I just, basically gave him his whole personal history and CV, and thoroughly terrified him.
Nice. So, we've already had Dan on the show, so we know a bit about him. But if you could, Kevin, tell us a bit about you and what you're known for.
Sure. Yeah. Well, okay. So my name's Kevin Dinovis, and independent filmmaker primarily, known for my first film, which was called Surrender Dorothy, and did a follow-up to that in 2004 called Death End, Texas. I have to really be careful about enunciating that properly because that's the pun, right?
Yeah.
Only two things that are certain in life are death and taxes. And I've been screenwriting a lot. I've been working out here in Hollywood as a screenwriter, most recently for Marvel Studios, which was a blast. Got very familiar with creative onomatopoeia, pow, blam, things like that.
Yeah.
And, who else did we work for? USA Networks, I wrote a script for them, and then worked on Soul Surfer, Bethany Hamilton story. Mm-hmm. So that was a lot of fun.
Very cool. So when I talked to you before, you said that you have a feature project that you're working on now, and you probably can't talk too much about it, but is this your own project then?
This actually isn't. No, this came to me. There were a couple of really good producers, Sanjay Bilani and Chris Wilson, came to me with this script. It's a contest winner, so it's got some pedigree behind it. Mm-hmm. I read this, and in the 15 years I've been out here, I read a lot of scripts, and this is the first one that I felt, wow, I wouldn't change a word of this. This is really terrific. I know. And I was like, I just want to see this. So, did that whole kind of dance about, got to know the producers. We're all on the same page, and, we're really excited about it.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So, if you could, Kevin, tell us a little bit about what it is you do, and if you could describe it for us. Yeah,
I guess it boils down to just storytelling. First of movies. That's the medium that I'm fascinated by the most, and that's from childhood. I saw, I think it was like Towering Inferno, Jaws in the early 70s, and before VCRs. I would make every member of my family take me to see these movies individually. So I'd get to see them like 7 or 8 times.
Nice.
And yeah, I know, and really get to know them. And always dreamed someday of, even before I could articulate what it was, of somehow being that.
Yeah.
Somehow doing that. You know, for a long time I thought it meant acting. I thought that was how you became movies, or that was how you told the stories, was to just act. And was just like rabid about pursuing acting as a career, and studied, you know, all these different methods and stuff, which served me well later when I got into directing. Didn't know it at the time. And then later that somehow it felt limiting. And I think that was when I started taking film classes, like film studies classes.
Oh, okay.
In high school and college. And I realized, oh, no, you know, yeah, the storytelling is behind all that. You know, it's the writing and the directing that really sort of steers that.
Yeah. So you direct now and you write. Is this what you sort of do on a daily basis? Is this your bread and butter then?
It is when it can be my bread and butter, which means I do a lot else, you know.
Yeah.
Teach when I can. I lecture, you know, I do workshops, screenwriting workshops, which are fun. And, you know, that's just as thrilling to me, too, because I did one a few years ago with Slam Dance, and one of the students in that class had the first act of this script that just knocked me out, you know, and she didn't know what to do with it. And I worked with her on it, just, you know, sort of as a mentor. That was it. She wrote the script. She wrote a feature called Drool. Her name's Nancy Kissam.
Okay.
And you have to look this movie up. It since has gone on to, I think, win some prizes on the festival circuit, and it's really earned sort of this little cult reputation on its own. Seeing that movie do that, I felt like this like proud godfather, you know? And that brings me, I would say, as much of a thrill as seeing something of my own done.
Very cool. You said you did some work for Marvel and other things. Where did you work on scripts for like the TV series and the movies and stuff like that, or is it separate stuff? Like
both.
Okay. Okay.
This was 2009, and this was part of they're now defunct writing program. You know, so they're trying a new experiment called like the Writers Program, I think, modeled after Disney's program. And they were just sort of tapping Hollywood writers and bringing them in for a prescribed period of time, and seeing what they could do with their library, this sort of a voluminous library of characters and story, plot ideas and stuff. Yeah. So that was a thrill, going in and getting to work with that. But while I was doing that, and I can't really talk about the characters that I got to work with because it's all proprietary, and you know that stuff they're draconian about keeping that under wraps. Necessarily. I mean, they've had some leaks in the past, you know, and I remember the Incredible Hulk. That was a big one. That somebody leaked that script online, and oh man, so they run a tight ship over there. But I got to work on Thor, you know. Oh wow! Yeah, the first Thor.
Wow, that's great.
The whole group of us got to do that. And so there was Edward Ricourt, and you might know him because he's since gone on great fame with his script for Now You See Me. Yep. Yeah, big summer blockbuster. And then the other name to watch is Nicole Perman. She worked on Thor the most. I mean, she really shepherded that script sort of as a script doctor in post production, or in while they were gearing up for production. And she worked on Guardians of the Galaxy. Wow. Yeah. Very cool. Next summer, and I got to tell you that's going to be like the new Star Wars.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's going to be pretty cool. I like that. So, Kevin, if you could, I kind of want to get to know you. I'm interested in just exploring this path about how you came into Hollywood, how you got to the position you're at now, and sort of what you're doing. Like you said, you do lots of things. So if you could describe first, if you could, sort of the path that you took to get where you're at now.
You know, it boils down to DIY, the whole do-it-yourself school. The not knowing how, or not having the connections helped a lot. Yeah. It's terrible to say this, but in a lot of ways, I kind of, I model my career after like someone like Ed Wood, who works outside the system, does what he wants, and it doesn't really matter in the end. It doesn't really matter. It's not so much a career as it is a life.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important distinction, because at times it can be a career. When I worked for Marvel,
Right.
when I'm working on a film and I'm getting paid to be on set, that's great. In between, you may have to do other things. And if you don't have a mindset of, okay, this is a marathon, it's a life, not a career, you're going to think, oh man, I'm a failure. I'm a has-been. I had the success in the past, but now what I'm doing, I'm in between. And the truth of it is, look at someone like Luis Buñuel, who had a decades-long hiatus.
Yeah.
Between his masterpieces at the beginning of his career and the end of his career. And I don't mean to compare myself to him in any way, but I look at careers like his, and I think, the attitude is that it's a life, and it's you're dedicated to doing your best as often as you can. And that's it. I think that's more than anything the key of what keeps me going. That said, I haven't had an agent, haven't had a manager.
Yeah.
For many years, I hadn't had a cell phone, which I thought was unique until I found out that Chris Nolan still doesn't have one.
Wow.
I
didn't know that.
Yeah, no, he's still, and I don't think he has email either.
No.
So he's got everyone beat.
What does he do? He has carrying pigeons? What do you do?
I think, yeah, exactly. And I think, his producing partner is his wife. And
okay.
I'm pretty sure she has a cell phone. And,
I would think so.
Those kinds of things.
And do you have a producing partner, or do you have someone that you work with often?
I have a few that I like that I've worked with. Richard Goldberg was my first on Surrender Dorothy. So another one was Stephen Israel, who had done Swimming with Sharks. He produced that film with Kevin Spacey. The funny thing about him was he was working at Slamdance when my film was up for consideration to show at the festival. He hated it. Threatened to quit the festival if they programmed it.
Wow.
Almost did.
Wow.
Fortunately, they programmed it anyway. He didn't quit, and I got to meet him up at Park City, and I had sort of advanced knowledge. Everyone told me, oh, you got to meet Stephen Israel.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, no, it figures. The guy that made Swimming with Sharks, hates my movie, and I loved that movie. So I finally tracked him down, and I had a 4-hour, powwow with him.
Yeah?
He still hates the movie.
Why does he hate it?
Well, because, and this was a good point, he saw it, and he said this. He says it sets gay cinema back 10 years because it's such a negative portrayal of a gay protagonist. And my whole intention was that Trevor wasn't gay. The lead in Surrender Dorothy is not a gay character.
Yeah, I didn't get that from the trailer at all.
No, and in fact, my whole thing was, he's heterosexual. And in fact, I said to Stephen, if he had been gay, it would be a problem. Yeah, he'd be normal. He'd be happy. He'd be able to just, have a life. But the thing is, what it is he's gynophobic, quote unquote. And that's a real word. He's terrified of women, clinically. Yeah. He just can't function around them. But he's so attracted and drawn to them. And you even at one point, I tried to even go inside the character's head during a fantasy moment so that you could see at his most private moment, he's still attracted to women. And his rebuttal to that was, and I loved it, yes, but they were very masculine-looking women. And I thought, well, God bless you. Because he was right. You could interpret him that way.
Yeah.
It really made me aware of alternate interpretations and to be very careful about how, a certain group. I'm not saying you have to cater to everybody.
Right.
But the fact that we came together and had sort of a 4-hour respectful meeting of the minds, it paved the way for him to produce my second film. It made me a better storyteller. Yeah. And we worked great together. Death in Texas. I'm very proud of that movie, and I'm sorry that it didn't get yet the attention that I think that I wish it had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. But you're working on other stuff, and you're going to keep trucking along.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
You're working on other stuff, and you're going to keep moving along.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So now you talked earlier. You said you had when you saw these early films, you would have your family members take you to the theater and stuff. Were you just drawn to the theater all by yourself, or was there something that sort of the inciting incident? What was that thing that brought you into the film world?
Man, that is hard because my earliest memories. I would go to see these things. I guess it's projection and fantasy, I would see these adults and I would imagine myself as, them, Steve McQueen in The Towering Inferno or Paul Newman or, later in Jaws, Chief Brody, I remember even Roller Coaster in 1977 or 79 with George Segal, just imagining me being him all serious with his briefcase, full of money on a roller coaster, and just that kind of fantasy projection. It was immediate. And the thing is this, I would insist that we would get to the theater early. We had these curtains that would cover the screen. And I would imagine before the movie started what the movie might be like.
Wow.
Yeah. So I would say, okay, so it would start like this, and I didn't know it, but that's what I was doing. And then when I got home, if I was really inspired by a movie like Jaws, I would start doing my own, called Shark. And he attacks the boardwalk and, does this and does that. And it's the most juvenile thing you could think of. But looking back on that, what I was doing at the time, I didn't know it then, was internalizing these structures, like the idea of setups and payoffs. The idea that the shark would have to swallow a bomb, in the first scene in order for it to go off by remote control in the end. Clumsy stuff, but the principles, nobody was teaching that to me.
Yeah.
And the movies were doing that, and it wasn't until later that I kind of learned the language of it. And really solidified all that. And
you said you went into acting. Did you come down here in Hollywood? Sorry, where did you come from? I missed that.
From Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Okay, so you came from Philadelphia, and then you came here for acting at some point, or what was that?
At that, I had already shifted by then. I shifted pretty early on.
Oh, okay.
Right after high school, I had this crossroads where I was going to go to the University of the Arts in Philadelphia. Then, that time, it was Philadelphia College of the Performing Arts. And I auditioned for them, and I got in on a scholarship, which was the only way I could afford it.
Right.
And I was like, man, because they were... and I sometimes do regret that I didn't go that way, but the thing was this. I realized that it would be limiting to the degree that that's all I could do.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a recourse to... and I hated the phrase, and anybody that is in their 20s hates the phrase fall back on, But I really respect now the fact that I did have a more solid narrative basis, by studying literature. I went and studied literature and drama from a lit standpoint.
Gotcha.
That helped a lot.
And you did that in college?
Yes.
Okay, so you studied like traditional literature and storytelling as a medium in that way, and that's exactly. And that's sort of where your DIY approach came from, because you didn't study screenwriting, and eventually you found yourself screenwriting, or how did that progress?
Studied that off of the guides, the Sid Fields and the Robert McKees, and basically any screenwriting manual. I would buy it, bring it, devour it. Reading scripts too. We would have these guys come to the Cherry Hill Mall, which Cherry Hill. I say Philadelphia. Really, I grew up in a little town outside called Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Cherry Hill Mall. These guys would come and they would have like baseball card trading things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and one guy had bins of Hollywood scripts. And most of them were scripts that were already done, like Lethal Weapon or whatever. Sometimes he'd have alternate drafts, like the third or fourth draft of Alien or the first draft of Alien or something. Every once in a while, he would have a real gem, something unproduced. I remember he brought in Pulp Fiction. And it was like, Tarantino, Reservoir Dogs. Oh my God! It was thick. It was big. I was like, I bought it for $25. Took it home. Just devoured these things.
Wow.
I fell in love with the way they looked on the page. Just the shape of them. They almost have this like hourglass, womanly shape to them.
Yep.
Just the way that And I looked at the script as an end product in and of itself. Everyone kept telling me, the script's a blueprint. The script is not worthy of study. The script is, And I'm thinking, this is the same thing everyone said about plays 30 years ago. That you wouldn't study plays in college. You wouldn't study the text of a play in college. And now we're studying, Eugene O'Neill, Edward Albee. I got to study with Edward Albee. He came to Rutgers and taught a class, and I was lucky enough to get into that. And got to really get some unique insights from him.
Very cool. So that's sort of where you then moved here to Hollywood at some point, I'm assuming?
Yeah, after I made my first film, I made it in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
And independently, which is another reason I think I was able to do it. Because coming out here, I don't know if I would have had the confidence.
Yeah.
It's just we're saturated and by people that are so much better than you. in every way.
Or you start to believe that,
I know it. You just look around, and I mean, look, you hold yourself up to somebody like Chris Nolan,
right.
And I use him as an example because he's my age, and you could say, oh well, he's from England, but half of him is from Chicago. He's American England, and you're just never going to compare. I just don't have the mind that he does. But it's like look, there are also a degree of filmmakers like Pauly Shore, and I don't mean to denigrate Pauly Shore in any way, but in some ways I do. As long as Pauly Shore is making movies or was making movies, I have just as much of a right. So I'm not going to hold myself up to my heroes because you just never measure up, never. At least, like you say, not in your own mind. Yeah. Even if look someday says, "Oh, it's a great movie," and blah blah blah,
It's
I don't
easy.
think Nolan will probably never reach Kubrick in his head, but for some people, he's already surpassed him.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really easy. Like I know even for me, I look at my peers and they've started on this project, and I see how far along they are on the road on that project, and I look at my project and I'm like, man, they're already so far along. Why am I not doing this? And you start to think, maybe even believe to yourself that you're not cut out for it, or that you can't do it, and that they have something that you don't, that sort of thing. And while some of that may be true, like you said, that whole DIY aspect of kind of coming from outside the system and just working your butt off to make something happen can really work for you.
Yeah, and even if you've done it before, even if you've come out here and done the Hollywood thing, it can be so refreshing to go back and remind yourself of why it is you do it.
Yeah, very cool. So, Kevin, what is it that you sort of have on the horizon? You said you write and direct. Is that what you plan on doing for a while now, or do you have ideas or thoughts about your future?
I'd love to. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to just keep doing this, and I've only made 2 movies in, I think, 20 years, so I don't know how many I've got left. If I get 2 more in, I think that'll be a great thing. I'd love to get on a cycle where I can actually, do modestly budgeted films, every few years. A lot of the problem is some of my ideas are so ambitious.
Yeah.
I got my favorite script, the one that I've been working on for years, and I'm just almost done, is about Christopher Marlowe, the Renaissance playwright. And I describe it as an Elizabethan James Bond thriller because he was a spy.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's got elements of a James Bond film, but it's all set against the backdrop of a very historically accurate Renaissance theater. And it climaxes with the Spanish Armada, and everything is true to the extent that we know. And so much that we don't know, I embellished to an almost kind of Pirates of the Caribbean degree, without the mysticism, without the magic, and really like that one. But you think, well, that's never going to sell.
Yeah.
And even if it did, I would never get a chance to direct that and all those kinds of things. But you just can't hold those considerations up because those get in the way of completion. And I look at the end as an achievement in and of itself. If I can get myself pleased with the script, I don't care if it sits in a drawer for the rest of my life. Because that, to me, man, nothing compares.
Yeah. But there's this balance, which I'm sure you're well aware of. We talked on the phone. There's this balance of wanting to create stuff that you are just really excited about, but then there's also this, you need to put food on the table, you need to pay the rent, all these different things. So how do you find that balance of working on just the stuff that brings you just pure joy and what's necessary to just, keep living, I guess?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and that's such a struggle because, man, there have been things that I've started off working on, thought, oh God, why am I saddled with this? Or how ironic it is that I come out here to work on X, Y, and Z and get stuck with, Power Rangers or whatever it is. Or something that I wouldn't want to work on. You know what? I think it's finding the joy in each individual project. It's finding that thing in Power Rangers, for instance, that would make it interesting for you. And I think, I'm not a big Michael Bay fan by any stretch of the imagination, but he had God, this is not going to make me any friends at all. I got to start talking about the people I like. He had a quote about Transformers. he was going to turn it down. I think Spielberg brought it to him, and he was like, "I'm not going to make a movie about a toy," you know. And Spielberg said, "It's not a movie about a toy. It's a movie about a boy in his car." You know, and he goes, "Oh, I never thought about it that way."
Yeah.
And suddenly it meant something to him because he looked at it that way. It's a relationship, you know, and he understood cars. He understood that kind of bond.
Yeah.
And that's what Spielberg does. You know, he'll find a gem in a speck of dust and make it an interesting movie and probably win an Oscar.
Yeah, it's true. So you're just finding that balance just in every project that you find yourself in. You're trying to find that gem of what you can attach to.
I think you have to, otherwise you're not going to be able to stick with it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's interesting though. You talked about your film, your favorite project, and to me that sounds really interesting and exciting. And I would go watch that over Transformers. The problem is finding a way to make that marketable so that a wide audience will see it is so difficult, especially it seems in today's economy. So you've got like this. I guess my question is, where do you find like this balance of what the indie market can support and the budgets for indie films? I mean, I can't think off my head of any way that a film like that could be made for an indie budget and be profitable. How does something like that work?
No, unless somebody took a really bizarre approach, like a Todd Phillips, you know, and did like Transformer Legos type thing, and just went, you know, with the low budge kind of low tech. Somebody made a movie, Escape from Tomorrow, in the Magic Kingdom, and they just like stuck little GoPro cameras in, and they made a whole really innovative feature, and it's a thriller, very ambitious too. And I think there may be some special effects issues and things, but I do think that an audience is willing to look what the guy that did oh man, he just did Elysium, right?
Oh, yeah.
His first film.
The alien one. I know what you're talking about. I can never remember the name of it.
Yeah, 9, District 9.
Blomkamp, yeah.
Right? Yeah, right. Okay. I was just blown away by what he was able to achieve.
Yeah.
Now, he had Weta behind him
Sure.
in New Zealand. But they didn't come on board initially, you know, and a lot of that stuff, if you look at it, you can sort of see, they were able to get to realize this on a budget.
Yeah.
So you can do that more and more, but to get back to your question, there's such a gulf now between, studio and indie. And indie is gone more and more micro, to the extent that what you can do for $150,000 or $200,000 is a lot better now than ever before.
Oh yeah.
But that's what you kind of want to do it at. You know, you don't want to do a $5 million independent film anymore.
Yeah.
You just don't, because the economics doesn't support that at our level the way that it used to.
Right.
You know, when you might have a really good sell at Sundance and sort of be that breakthrough indie.
But at $5 million, you're going to need names, you know.
That's done.
Yeah.
That model is completely exploded.
Yeah.
And the studios really aren't buying specs anymore. They're not investing in original properties, unless it's a guaranteed franchise. You know, that's what right now. It's a trend.
It does make it very difficult for the immediate foreseeable future because, difficult in some ways because you have to be able to realize the film for a much smaller budget. You need to, when you're planning it, or when you're writing it, when you're thinking about your market, you need to think about sort of what's possible to be made on what money you can scrape together from friends and family. It's that level is what you need to think at. It seems like, so that's
which can also be very liberating.
Yeah,
you can do things then. You take risks that you wouldn't be able to take in any other. And I think that's going to result in like more movies, I hope, like Gummo, like Harmony Korine's Gummo, which I think is a masterpiece. Non-narrative, experimental. I'd like to see more of these things. We're seeing a lot more docs now.
Yeah.
Docs have exploded.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, I think what I want to do now, Kevin, is just begin to wrap up a little bit. We've talked to you about your history, about what you see in the future for indie filmmaking, and both for yourself. So I have a couple questions for you just to kind of wrap things up. Some of them are a little deep, so feel free to take your time and answer them as much as you want.
Sure, not at all.
Okay, so right out of the gate, looking back on your history in independent film, if there was something that you could do differently, knowing what you know now, what do you think it would be?
I would try. I would have tried, I think, to capitalize on that 10 minutes of success that I had after Surrender Dorothy in '98. You win an award like Slamdance, and you have to be ready to capitalize on that at that moment, which means, and people told me this at the time, you have to have a script ready to go. And by not having that, I basically just squandered that what they call buzz.
Right.
And stuff say, they can sell buzz. They can get you a gig if you've got a little bit of heat on you.
Yeah.
You've got articles and that kind of thing. So from a professional standpoint, I think, that would have been smart to do.
Gotcha.
But I don't think I would have learned as much, who knows how that would have panned out.
Yeah. Yeah, when I ask that question, there's always this balance of sort of like, well, I'm very happy with my life. And then there's the other side that says, but if it had gone the way that I had thought it would in my head back then, maybe this is what would have happened, Right.
I'd be doing a James Bond movie right now.
Right, exactly, If I could do something differently, I would be doing James Bond,
Right.
Okay, so this is a question that I really like to ask. What's maybe the best piece of advice that you've ever received throughout your career that you can share with us as young filmmakers?
Wow. Man. Does it have to be advice that I was given directly, or can it be advice that I've read?
It can be both. If you've thought of it and you're like, wow, that really is applicable. That's something that I wish more filmmakers knew and took to heart. Okay.
Well, I got two then.
Sure.
One's from me, and it's a bit cynical, but it's also true. And that is, it's not so much who you know, it's who knows you. And that's important. And I think if you stick to that as an artist or filmmaker, it's not who you know. In other words, don't rely on others. Stick to your guns. Do what you do. That's how you get known. You will get known as long as you stick to that. And that's important. The other thing is, I think it might be Sid Field, right? Going back to Sid Field. Don't get it right, get it written. And this is advice I wish I could take more often. Don't belabor it. Don't, just get it done, get it written, get it out there. It's going to keep changing. It's going to keep evolving. The more people come on, it's going to grow and evolve, and it's not going to be what you had in mind. So the more you delay on that, then I think the worse off you are later on.
Yeah. Okay, so what is one movie, TV show, or even a YouTube channel that has you really excited right now?
God, are you kidding me? I was going to start by apologizing for my appearance right now because I haven't gotten a freaking minute's sleep this week because of this Breaking Bad marathon that's on AMC. I came to this party late. Really late, like about 2 weeks ago when I saw that Ozymandias episode.
Wow.
And I had kind of known, I knew from people talking who the characters were, and I could kind of follow it. You don't have to be a genius to figure out, all right, that's who they are and stuff. But man, that episode just blew me away. I thought so I went back and I saw the pilot episode, and knowing how it is wrapping up, going to that pilot episode and seeing how it started, but not really, it was such a unique experience, and I go, wow, this is maybe the richest, most compelling thing I've ever seen for original television. And then I just went back and watched this whole marathon this past week.
Yeah, there's some pretty interesting stuff on it.
They keep topping themselves, I really, and it's cohesive. It's not like Lost, where they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
Or even like The Sopranos, which I really loved and respected, but you couldn't do an ending. Like, The Sopranos pissed a lot of people off.
Oh, yeah.
Because of that ending. But it worked. You could do that on The Sopranos. Yeah, that was part of the point, was that, this is a slice of life, and it doesn't matter where you come in and where you end it. This is always going to be, you could look at any slice of life, but this has such a beautiful structure. It's like, to use a metaphor, like an algebraic equation. It's balanced, or like a chemistry thing. You can sort of see the mechanics of it from the beginning to the end, and they didn't know that they would have 5 or 6 seasons. They could have gone 9.
Yeah, really.
And yet I have the confidence that these guys somehow would have figured out how to make that equation as elegant as they've made it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So that I'm tremendously excited about right now.
Very cool. And where are you at in this series right now?
Well, I'm caught up pretty much, because I've seen I'd seen, well, no, there's a few that I have to see before Ozymandias. So basically the 5th season, the last season.
Gotcha.
A few episodes leading up to that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question that I find is very difficult for filmmakers.
Okay.
What is your favorite film, TV show, or what have you?
Of all time?
Yeah. If you had to pick one.
Hold on, what's gonna...
Yeah.
This is actually easy for me. Does this show up on there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. This is the one, it's probably backwards or something, but that image, more than anything, scared the hell out of me as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched my grandmother read that book all that winter with that shark on the cover and that girl swimming. And I made her tell me, I said, what happened next? What happened next? And when I found out the soon to be a major motion picture, man, I could not wait till that movie came out. And it did not disappoint. Wow. To this day, I think it's like a perfect piece of film. Second favorite movie, Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I refuse to move Jaws down the list, even though I've matured as an audience member.
Yeah.
And I can look at a movie like Lawrence of Arabia, and I can appreciate it on a level that I could never appreciate Jaws on. I won't topple Jaws because Jaws has this immediate effect. Jaws seems to me like the film itself is almost a metaphor for the shark. The film itself is a perfectly designed machine. It's designed to do two things: terrify and entertain. And does those as well as a great white shark can eat. you know? Yeah.
Very cool.
So, love it for those reasons.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where's the best place that people can go to find more about you?
Just, I'm online, the internet, IMDb is a resource. I don't have a personal website or anything like that. Probably should.
But you have a Twitter. Do you use that much?
No, I don't even. So, like my Facebook page.
Okay.
Everyone can Facebook me.
Awesome.
Open and I'll talk to anybody.
Very cool. Well, Kevin Dinovis, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Joshua, thanks for having me. This was really a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Do you want to learn the secrets to funding your own film the independent way? Learn more at producerspal.com/finance guide. To learn more about this podcast episode and Kevin Dinovis, go to producerspal.com/Kevin Dinovis.